Deanna, can you hear us?
Deanna, can you hear us?
Deanna, can you hear us? Yes, she's waving so she can. Okay. It's 7:01, Travis, so.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 7:02 this evening. The date is Monday at November the 21st, 2022. So if everyone would please silence their cell phones, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Amanda, would you do the roll call?
Councilmember Rounds,
Here.
Councilmember Chapman,
Here.
Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Holland, Councilmember Holland, can you hear us? Councilmember
Can you
Burke.
hear him? Can you hear Amanda? She can't hear.
Can she hear you?
Can you hear me? Evidently not.
She's gonna call in.
Yeah. Who's she calling?
Call or text. The number that's on the thing.
All right. Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Councilmember Rolland. Councilmember Dowdy.
Here.
Here.
She said here.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we're good.
On here. I can't hear on this.
Okay, we can hear you.
We can hear you now.
Oh. Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay,
Alright.
good. All right.
From Verizon.
So, Monty called in. He was sick.
I'm
this
just
evening.
listening to the YouTube. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
So, can we have a motion to excuse Monty?
Motion to excuse Monty.
Second.
Okay, would you take the roll call?
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Can you hear me, Deanna? No.
Well, we got 4 votes here.
Yeah, so go on.
Okay. Councilmember Burke. Councilmember Rolland.
She's probably
Uh,
not had time. to get-
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Okay, it's been approved. There's no presentations this evening, so
Presentation proclamations.
Should we see if somebody else online can hear us? Like, is nobody able to hear us?
well, that's just us,
What
right?
do you see on your screen?
How about the other people that are
I
on?
see
Don't mess with that.
an EH, a DS, and I see Deanna, and a AW, and a D.
Let's see if they can hear us.
This conference will now be
I don't
recorded.
see the AEW there.
So can anybody who's online hear us?
There's Deanna. She's in there. Obviously shorten her name up. No. Green.
E. Swingler, can you hear us?
So nobody must be able to hear us online.
She had her phone, I think. I think she was doing it from her
Yeah.
phone.
Okay, well, there's enough people here, so we're gonna go on with the meeting. So, citizens' communications for items not on the agenda. We have 3 people signed up. Todd. Okay, Deinhardt.
I just want it on the record, that is horrible. That there could be people on there not being able to hear us. Then we're gonna continue on. I mean, there's that much of a priority here.
What, do you wanna sit down then?
I will sit and wait all night.
I will sit and wait all night. I just want to sit and wait all night.
Their time is just as valuable as ours.
Why
Looks
don't
like
you
somebody's in the
just
chat.
why don't you ask the, who can hear us?
Who can hear us? What's that noise?
Nope, I'm not touching the internet. Wi-Fi.
Can anyone hear us out there? No.
You ain't got communications. Citizens speak, and we should have communications.
Jen, can you hear us?
What's your name?
She can only hear me.
Deanna said it's negative feedback. I agree with Mr. Deinhardt. If we can't get communications to the public, then we should not have a meeting.
Can anyone hear me out there? Was that Mr. Swingler?
Jen Rowland, if you look at the top corner, it says talking with Jen. Now she's gone off.
We didn't hear. No, she's not. We don't hear her.
Can anyone hear us out there?
I can hear you.
Okay, Deanna, she can. What about you, Mr. Swingler?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we will continue our meeting.
Well, we can't hear her.
Well, we've been,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we still needed to listen if they got a comment about
Yeah.
the, items.
So we get Mr.
Deanna, Jen, can you say hey, hello, or Deanna?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Okay, that's Jen. Oh, Deanna, can you say something so we can hear you? Mr.
So
Swingler?
this is like feedback.
Does she have a phone going?
That's all I hear is like lots of echoey ocean feedback.
What about now? You can hear? Can you speak to us in case you have a comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, then we're
Okay.
good.
Good, all right. Okay,
What
so
about
let's
the
move
rest?
forward.
Any others?
Well, if they can hear,
Yeah,
the
I
other
think we're
people
good.
ought to be able to hear.
That's true.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to, communications for items on the agenda. Todd Deinhardt? You have 5
Not on the
minutes.
agenda, you mean?
Yeah, not on.
Not on the agenda, yes.
All right, so, I think most of you are familiar with you. I'm gonna be clear here tonight. Transparency and accountability should not be that tough. That's what we're looking for. I mean, if you look at the last council meeting here 2 weeks ago, you spent 60 minutes in behind closed doors executive session. Then after that, you know, you listened to public comment for 60 minutes, and then literally for 35 minutes, from 8:18 to 8:53, 35 minutes, you went through your public hearings, you went through your standing committees, your advisory committees. It took 35 minutes to run the council, and everything else was behind closed doors, and we heard nothing. So that shows me right there, transparency is not something you're all after, but I want transparency.
You're never gonna get transparency when it's behind closed doors.
Okay, and I agree behind closed doors, but the sad thing is, unfortunately, Will isn't here. That memo that he put out on October 20th had inaccurate information in there. The dates were wrong on there when laptops were taken. Again, I don't work for the city, it wasn't mine, but we're a small town, we all know who it is. The dates and things, that memo that he put out to us citizens was wrong. He had inaccurate information in there.
Well-
So again, transparency is something I'm looking for. Second thing, let's talk about accountability here, okay? So, the water bills have been wrong now for 3 billing cycles, 120 days, no accountability. You're all aware of the hundreds of issues, yet only action case. And I'm saying the 4th rate case, yes, there's been 3 rate increases, and it's the 4th one. Okay, so when we talk about accountability, let's be clear here. And also, when you're taking notes here, I want to be clear on what I'm asking. They put in the meeting minutes that I was worried about the cubic feet versus cubic 100 feet 2 weeks ago. That wasn't my concern. I could care less. It was just a point of error. And that's what they put. So let me be clear what I want you to put in the meeting notice and what I'm asking for. I'm requesting a full audit and reconciliation by a third party of every utility bill that has been sent out by Manol on behalf of the city of Woodland. Every bill. And termination of that contract because they have breached it. And here, you can say, why should we do this? Let me go through that. I've got on my computer here, yep, keep looking to make sure I've gotten under my 5 minutes
will.
here. Exactly. Okay, I've got 3 bills here on my computer. One is mine. It's totally fine. It's accurate. $160. I am perfectly fine. This isn't a fight for me, this is a fight for my peers and my citizens that live here around me. So one bill, I'm fine, I've worked through it, and they've got it all straightened out, okay. I got a second bill here on my computer that I have redacted the names. They're not being charged for sewer, they're only being charged for water. That's in their favor, good for them. I'm proud of that, because you know what, the city is being so ignorant that they're not fixing the bill. Now I got a third bill here that has been redacted as well, it's not my, bill to tell you. Okay, it has water sewer charges, however, the water charges that are being billed aren't being billed under the tiered pricing. All of it is being billed at the third tier of $5.46 per CF. So they're getting overcharged because it's all there, so it's not right. So I have 3 bills here, 3 scenarios. How acceptable is that? All of you have sat there and done nothing. How hard is it to say, okay, we hear you residents, we're gonna do something. Is it because you guys are lazy? Is it because you're incompetent? I don't know what it is, but I just want somebody to explain that to us here.
Thank you. Yes.
Just wanted
Frank?
to, as a reminder, is that with the council's procedures, any person making disruptive, disparaging, or impertinent remarks or unreasonably disturbing the business of the council, either while addressing the council or attending them, shall be asked to leave the meetings. So please keep your tone and what you say respectful. We have every right to criticize. If there's something you need to do it, but it needs to be done respectfully.
And I asked if they were incompetent. It was a question. I was not assuming, I was asking a question. I specifically said it is a question.
Okay, and that's why I read that out.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Butler? For not on the agenda.
Should just go in the,
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand a little bit about what's going on in Woodland. So I'm aware that the city and the county have some legal issues going on about the bottoms. And I've talked to some in the city, and they say the county wants to develop that, and we're not ready for it. I've talked to the county, and they say the city wants to develop that, and that's not what we want. So I'm hearing the same thing, that the city and the county want the same thing, but something's not right. And I noticed here that in this workshop, and I don't know how workshops work, but there's a workshop at the end of the council meeting. So is that like just a bunch of discussion about that? Or is it just staff presenting information to you?
It's staff presenting,
Okay.
and then we have discussion.
And then you can ask about it. Well, I've noticed here that it says that, so what they're wanting is to rescind 2 ordinances that we have that you were already passed. And when I'm looking at those ordinances, well, it says one of the reasons why they want it is it says this area faces intense development pressure. I'd like to know who's putting the pressure, because the county's not putting the pressure.
I
And so,
think,
do you think-
if
okay.
I could be wrong, Travis may answer the question, but it probably like Aho or companies like that.
Developers, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Developers are putting the pressure.
Exactly.
But that's
Am I
not,
right,
that's,
Travis?
we're all adults, we can handle pressure. If we know it's not good for our city, we can say, hey, you got a great company, you got some great ideas, but not here in Woodland. Or you need to talk to the county, because that's county property anyway. So I just wasn't sure what all was going on with that. And it seemed like the ordinances that we have in place that they're wanting to rescind are good. That ordinance 1508 says it's for the preservation of agricultural land from premature development pressures. That sounds great, but they want to get rid of that because of some other pressure. I don't know. It's just, that's why I was like, this just isn't adding up to me. So I just thought you might want to kind of think about that and make sure that everybody knows that the county is not putting pressure on the city or wanting to build down there. They'd like to preserve it as agriculture, because it is some of the best agricultural land in Western Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to, find it here.
Student communication on the agenda.
communication on the agenda.
Not on the agenda stay yet. So we have a Lance Page.
Like Mr. Deinhardt, I kind of want to address the issues we're having with Minol. I'm fairly new to Woodland. I only moved here in 2018. Up until the takeover of Minol and the billing system, I was pretty happy with the services I received. Unfortunately, that's not been the case the last couple of months. My wife spent probably an hour and a half on the phone trying to get a hold of someone from Minol to resolve a $500 bill, when traditionally it's been about $300 every 2 months. It appears that it was correct. I still have some questions about that, but I'm in a position where I'm able to afford that, and I know that there are other people in this city that are not, and I think it's important that all of you understand that this is something that has to be dealt with. So I spent some time the last couple of weeks going through the initial Minol proposal and then the contract that was signed, and I was a little bit dismayed at how sloppy their proposal was. The business I'm in, I do proposals all the time. First of all, it was addressed to the wrong city, which that's kind of baffling. The project timeline dates were wrong. Everything was listed to be done in 2020 when the proposal was issued in 2020. Realistically, it wouldn't be implemented till 21 or 22, so obviously it was an error in putting the proposal together. And then when you combine those two things, it makes me think they're just kind of sloppy. Well, they're supposed to be taking care of our money and billing and everything, and if someone's that sloppy with a proposal, how are they going to do a good job with managing our money and our billing? And I think the evidence proves that they're not. So I went into the contract and looked in there. There's some language about breach of contract, and I just questioned the council. Has the council looked into that? Have they been sending written correspondence to Minol stating that they need to fix this in a timely fashion per the contract documents?
I don't think the council per se has done any of that. It's up to the department heads to take care
Are
of that.
the department heads doing that? Are they?
The administrator.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoever's responsibility is to do that, are they enforcing that part of the contract and putting
I'm
Minol
not sure.
on
I think
notice?
they are looking into it.
Okay.
But,
Well, just my opinion as a citizen, I think we're beyond the looking at it stage, and we need some action here, because if they don't get this fixed, we're gonna have 2 years of this nonsense. And then if we don't act at, I think it's 1 year and 9 months to send notice that the contract needs to be terminated, then we're on the hook for another year. And it's very easy for something like that to slip by somebody, and then we're on the hook for 3 years instead of 2. One other thing I noticed in the original proposal, their average time to answer the phone, they claimed was 30 seconds. And then in the contract, it says their average answering time was 180 seconds. Now, we all know that have called into there, neither one of those numbers is realistic, but you can see the difference between when the stated proposal and then what was in the contract were radically different. Again, what are they up to there? Thanks.
Thank you. I see Whitney Rabb.
I'm coming here again tonight with no answers from the city council still. When will anyone give us any answers? We have not been here to just complain. We have asked questions, we demand answers, and we're not gonna go away. We want to get a prioritized list of capital improvement projects. We wanna know what the DOH report is and the recommendations and a timeline. Are we paying or being fined? Why did you wait to implement changes for meter charges for new businesses and residents? For example, a 4-inch meter, we lost $140,000. How much did we lose in total for the 16 months we were charging such a small amount? This was based on the study, and from what I was told by one of the council members, because everybody wanted to implement everything all at one time. Now, that's just one person's opinion, but I want to know if that's the truth. Because How many of us little residential payers are making up for $140,000 at a shot that wasn't collected? Where was the money returned to the budget for the ARPA money that we got from COVID? We have been having a 7% increase on utilities since 2006, roughly. What happened to all that money? Because there's no other utility district that was doing 7% for 16 years and saying, oh, we're still way behind. Everything was just mismanaged in the past, so now we're going to charge you another 60%. Are we updating FCS? When and how often? To give you an idea of how much we lost for water, for the 5/8 lines, we lost $1,000 for every one. A 1-inch line, $6,000. A 1.5-inch line, $14,000. A 2-inch line, $22,000. A 3-inch line, $45,000. A 4-inch line, $68,000. For sewer, the 5/8 we lost $300. For the 1-inch, $7,000. For the 1.5-inch, we lost $17,000. The 2-inch, $28,000. The 3-inch, $57,000. The 4-inch, $87,000. Who should have been setting the rates for the meters? Why were they, for this long, so far behind on what they should have been charged? Because this, to me, is where the mess came in, when we had so much growth and you're losing $10,000 to $140,000 for every new residence that went in, for every new business that went in. I want to know why council members are leaving after a workshop to go home to do their stuff online. If you ran and you knew that you couldn't be here, then why did you run? We have important things going on. I understand that sometimes people get sick, but this isn't a one-time thing. Department heads are gone, council members gone, when there are important problems that are happening that aren't being addressed. Last meeting, I was told we have wood pipes still in service, but it was by the port director, who was told by the public works director, but the port has never been in the city limits, so how could that even be true? And when you talk to Peter Boyce, he said that that's never happened. So now you're getting two different answers once again, and somebody's not telling the truth. And I also have a question on why we have low income and senior rates when there's only one person in the entire city who can meet that. One person. So who are we trying to serve? Like, what's the point of even having it? And finally, sorry. Can't get my screen to go back. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for items on the agenda, does anybody online want to talk to items not on the agenda? Mr. Swingler? Okay. We can't hear you.
You're on.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Swingler.
Thank you. I've never used this before.
He's not, though. I still can't hear him.
I was wondering about like infrastructure. How can we improve infrastructure, because the roads are just hectic? And I mean, generally widen the roads without anybody losing any property. I don't see anybody giving in
I'm
that.
sorry, Mr. Swingler, we can't understand you.
That's on his end.
It's,
Can you hear me now?
try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead, it's a little better.
Can you hear me? Hello?
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 Okay,
Okay, you can hear me now? Okay, I was just wondering about traffic is really a pain in the butt lately, and I was wondering how we gonna, can you guys hear me?
I'm sorry, we still can't understand you.
Traffic and infrastructure is what I heard.
Traffic and infrastructure?
Yeah. I don't see how we're gonna be able to improve it because we can't widen the roads without anybody losing any property. I don't see anybody giving any property up, so, and we're such a small town, I mean, putting in more homes and apartment complexes and RV parks, I don't see how that's gonna help. I'm sorry if you can't hear me still, I don't know. Maybe my phone just really sucks, I don't know. I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
It's very muffled.
I don't know. I'm sorry, my phone just really sucks. Good.
Can you call in, Mr. Swingler?
How do I do that?
Or use
Just
the
call in the
chat.
number?
Pardon?
Or use the chat.
Or use the chat. You can chat online here.
I feel that my spelling really sucks.
Did you?
I did. So he was asking what we're gonna do about infrastructure and traffic with all the new RV parks going in and new housing. How are we going to widen the roads because it would be removing people's personal property from their front yards?
Well,
And businesses.
that's a good question. Travis, can you answer that?
So when a development occurs, they are required to build frontage improvements as part of their development. So that's part of the issue, I think, that addresses the frontage improvements. They also have to contribute to the city's infrastructure system, whether that's building water and sewer lines, but they also contribute to the transportation system by paying impact fees. And so there is a system in place for them to offset the impacts to their system. Now, I also need to point out that while there has been development there approved, none of those projects are in construction for residential development at this point. And it's been actually 3 years since we've seen a significant amount of new development, and we've actually lost units over the last 3 years. So a lot of the questions that might be coming up about residential development are not necessarily associated with city projects that have been approved, because we know there's been a lot of residential development in Cowlitz County, whether it's upriver or in the bottoms. So that residential growth is not attributed to city growth.
Okay. Did you hear that, Mr. Swingler?
Yes, but I thought they were not paying the impact tax or whatever for transportation. I thought that was waived or something, and I mean, traffic just all over Woodland is cruddy. I try to get from Sunset up Green Mountain to work, and it takes me forever. And I mean, just going anywhere. And that kind of didn't answer what I meant by how we're going to make the roads bigger without anybody losing property. Because, I mean, what kind of infrastructure are they going to put in when they can't widen the roads or whatever either?
So talking about widening the roads. It says from Green Mountain Road, there's no way to widen the roads all the way there. And he's talking about the
Or-
infrastructure, the industrial and the words.
The RV park?
No, the impact fees, the business impact fee vacation or.
Well, there hasn't been anybody applied for that
Can you
yet,
guys
has
hear
there?
me better now? Any chance you can hear me better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I was asking was, I thought they were waiving the transport tax, whatever, for all new businesses or whatever. And how are the businesses going to improve the traffic? I mean, or how are the apartments and all that stuff going to improve the traffic?
So the impact
Maybe
fee.
you can, but-
So the impact fee holiday is for industrial and commercial uses, And as far as I know, there has not been an application that has been subject to the holiday yet. I would need to check that again. I don't know that off the top of my head. I know there are a couple small developments that are going to, but the one thing I did catch is your discussion of Green Mountain Road. Green Mountain Road is actually a county road. It is not a city road. And so we are requiring them to make improvements to it, but it is not being built to city standards unless the county is requiring them to as part of the city's development. So for example, there is the apartment complex called Oak Village, and they are doing frontage improvements when they get into construction. So they will be subject to both impact fees and frontage improvements on the county road. I don't know that there's any other development that is subject to the impact fee holiday.
Okay. Okay.
But sometimes it's backed up all the way from the light to the roundabout. Like from the lights to the roundabout, it's all the way backed up, and I mean,
I know the
What's-
roundabout's
if they
backed
don't-
up. That's because people don't know how to drive it, part of it. Pardon?
well, that's true. That's true too. That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else,
And,
Mr.
My
Swingler?
last sorry, my last question was just about, okay, so the water bills and all that, wells. I went to look up about putting in a Sandpoint well, and I went and I looked up a graph of all the already put in requests for wells to be installed and stuff. And there was a fair amount in the new HOA division over by here, Gun Club. And I was just wondering if any of the city council people that live in there have a Sandpoint well.
I still couldn't hear.
He's talking about sand pump wells in the HOA and Gun
he asked
Club.
if any city council members have Sandpoint wells themselves.
What's that?
JJ, I think, does. I don't.
They
We've been
authorized
thinking
it.
about it, but
They authorized it,
quite a few years ago.
12, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
To alleviate the problem, of the high prices of sewer. And then from what I understand, a couple of weeks ago, now they're saying you can't. So
Oh.
this new Tracy,
Oh, really?
yeah, she said you can't.
Oh, I didn't
But
think it
if
had
you
been
got it in
changed.
there, your grandfather.
Okay.
That's weird. I mean, I looked up the graph that showed.
That I'd have to look under writing.
And I mean, you can.
Well, we'll check into that, Mr. Swingler. Okay,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to items on the agenda. And Donna, I asked you up earlier, I know, so you did tell us what you needed to say. So I'll ask Todd Deinhardt to come back, please.
So, agenda items here.
Mhm.
So if I look at Resolution 755, which is on here tonight, I guess I will list out the questions that I would hope council would be. Again, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings here. So as a council, as a competent council, I would expect, this is what my expectation would be. These are the questions we should be asking when she goes for this grant. How much is the total project? She lists out that it's a 1.5, million gallon tank here. Again, how much is the project? How much is she estimating for grants here? We would like to know, is this gonna be a $3 million project and she hopes to recover 3 million in grants, or is she going to get 20,000 in grants? And then what does that tie to the 2023 budget? We went through the workshop here, the budget, I don't know that it's been fully implemented and approved until December 6th. So I would like to know a reconciliation here on that. If she's assuming that she's gonna get 50% recovery in grants, 20%. And then also, I'd like to know, how does this compare to the water rate impact study? I mean, if you look at what the rates are happening here to our residents, this is all because of a rate study that was done and was approved by council. I realize not all of you were on council then, so I'm not an idiot, I appreciate that. But again, council needs to be held accountable in asking these questions. And so is that rate impact study, if she's gonna increase it for, you know, a $2 million, $3 million project, does that mean our rates have to be higher than the impact study? Or if she's getting full recovery and grants, does that mean that we don't need the rate recovery? I mean, again, I'm looking to council to ask some questions and do due diligence.
Okay, I don't, with the grants, you have to put some money into the grants, so you can't, it's not 100% funded, I do know that. Travis, do you have something to add to that?
I'm sorry, I don't, I just wanted to clarify
December
December 5th,
Yeah.
not the 6th.
Yeah.
So if
Okay.
anybody's listening at home, we want to make sure they know it's
Okay.
the 5th.
The fifth.
All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on to agenda approval.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been first and seconded. Carl, you have any, I don't think
No.
we have to have comments on that. So, Melissa, would you go ahead and take the roll? Amanda, I mean, thank you.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rolland,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye. Oh.
Councilmember Chapman,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to reports of standing committees. Human Resources, did you meet this evening? Okay. Who's,
Councilmember Rowland, are you speaking?
Yes.
Jen's-
So we only had two things on the agenda tonight. One of them, we want to recommend the due pass for the MOU regarding the swing shift. And we also recommended the due pass for the temporary shift switch for Officer Shaka.
okay. Is that everything? Does anybody have any questions? Okay. We'll move on to,
When we go to approve that,
do we have to approve
I'll
that?
have some questions.
Okay. We don't approve these, do we, JJ?
No, this, no,
No,
I'm
okay.
talking about when
We
All
can
right,
ask questions right now.
Finance,
Um,
you have questions?
we can ask questions right now.
On the police.
Put your microphone, turn your microphone on.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. On the police overtime, it says $0. How much is it gonna cost us to put a sergeant for overtime when we need it on the shifts?
I don't have the hourly rate handy, but it's more than a patrol officer.
Right.
And the reason for this shifts, the swing shift, is that it affords officers an opportunity, other than one team getting the overtime exclusively, it affords both teams the opportunity to get overtime for mandatory shift coverage for 4 days out of a rotation. And so it doesn't matter whether it's a patrol officer or a sergeant, they work that shift just to cover. So they wouldn't act, if they're covering for a patrol officer, they wouldn't be acting in a supervisor's capacity.
But you're gonna pay them the supervisor's pay?
Yes, sir. That's by contract, yes, sir.
That's by contract?
Yes, sir.
Why wasn't that included in that contract when we negotiated?
I can't answer that question,
Okay.
sir.
I figured that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to finance. We had our meeting this evening. It was Gina and myself, and then Travis joined us. We started at 5:57, and we talked about the Townsend and Associates contract. It's ending, it's a 2-year contract. It's ending 2023, so we're looking to pass that till the end of 2023. That'll give us this next year, yeah, the rest of this year and next year. That'll give us time to, and they've been excellent in the past, but they've had some health issues, so we've had a couple problems, but that'll give us time to put it out for bid if this next year.
So basically a year and a month?
Yes.
2 years.
Mhm.
but-
So,
Okay.
cloud permit software, that is to do with online for permits and things. Anyone, if we go to that item, anyone can get on and look to see what is happening with any piece of property that is in the city of limits. So if you are just an individual wanted to find out what was happening, they could go on, see what had been done with that and what is happening with that particular piece of property.
Just the council, not the public?
Anybody.
Anybody can?
Anybody.
Oh, okay.
So, and it alleviates those contractors from having to come in, they can do it online. And then when somebody needs to go, check out the work that's being done, they can do that direct with the person that does that and have that, then they can see the work order. So it saves a lot of time on all areas. Public safety agreement, it's a 3-year and it's ending at the end of this year. So I don't remember exactly what we were going to do about that, but anyway, our revenue is up with, find all my papers here. With our big box stores and our retail sales. So that is looking real well.
What do you call a big box store?
Pardon?
What do you call a big box store? Walmart and what else?
You can't list who it is.
I mean, no,
You-
those are
but,
big box stores.
It's big box stores. And,
Right.
so our revenue, has increased by 5% for 2022 and, further increased by 33%, in 21. So, our income is, our sales tax is doing real well. And
And
so,
how much
and
is
then we
that?
ended the meeting at, 6:30.
Do we have, what would that bring in extra as far as dollars? 5% and 30%? Did they
Well,
say?
12,000. Let's see, total resale tails was 249K, which was increased by 12K. And in September, when sales tax totaled 237, it was increased 33% by 61K. So October, when sales tax revenue totaled 188K. So, and they continue to do real well, so we're hoping it continues to come in. So, any other questions?
No, that's good.
Okay, we'll move on. Reports of city council.
Well, this weekend we had a turkey bingo for the community and a snowflake bazaar. Did anybody here make it? No? It went off
I did.
excellent.
Excellent.
And a lot of people won turkeys. There was 37 turkeys given out to people. And
67.
lots of prizes. I
67?
mean,
67 or 37?
67. What did I
67.
say? 37? 67. 67 turkeys. So anyway, New Woodland Grange did that, and looking forward to doing it again next year.
It was a nice event.
The Presbyterian Church also had a nice
Bazaar.
and that was really nice as well in Woodland. And just hope everybody has a wonderful, happy Thanksgiving and
Yes.
safe
Okay,
this upcoming week.
okay. We'll move on. Reports of advisory committees, which would be Denise Miller.
Oh. Advisory, no. Good evening.
Good evening. Now, do you guys all know that Shop Small is on Saturday? Friday. It is historically one of the busiest shopping days for small business please, please, please shop small. Your support warms our heart. The CEDC worked with a grant, and they are advertising a lot of our small businesses as well on radio. Let's see, they're doing radio, newspapers, and internet, like Facebook and stuff. So we gave them a list, and by we, I mean I went through, I actually was Google mapping, like scrolling around, making sure I didn't forget anybody. So all of our businesses will also be on all of the radio ads as well to come visit our town as well this Saturday. There are a couple boutiques and stuff. They're doing something called their version of Winterfest, and they are doing like little sales. Like, goodness, I'm gonna name off some, and I guarantee I'm gonna forget some. Bailey Rose, Laurel Market, which is the new one over there. Blue Orchid, Rustidalia, Rosenthorn. I'm forgetting some, but those are the ones that have contacted me. They're doing specials. And of course, we have other small businesses like Woodland Corner Store, Luckman Coffee, all of them too. So go visit them. Not every place is doing a sale, but we all need to support our small businesses because they're what makes our community great. So, Visitor Center news. Snow Park passes have been ordered. They should be delivered by Friday is what I've been told. They mailed them to our actual building, and we don't have a mailbox, so they went back. We have our tree permits. I know I talked about it last time. $5. Go cut down a Christmas tree. You can do it now, and you can do it now. We have Bigfoot and Mount St. Helens gifts for stocking stuffers. Like we have ornaments, bags, mugs, shot glasses, all that kind of cool stuff. The Shalachi Railroad is now selling their Santa train tickets. However, there are no trees this year. The tree farm they used to collaborate with is, I believe, sold their property. So you can still go see Santa. You can still get the hot cocoa, coffee, and cider, but there will be no Christmas trees. Okay, so I did my best this last couple weeks on getting all the different amount of holiday things going on. If you guys saw the email, it was probably about this long of all the different events. I did attend the Snowflake Bazaar as well as the Shining Star one at Presbyterian and VFW and all that. We did our loops. It was fun to see everybody. So coming up this Saturday, we have Small Business Saturday, the Winterfest shopping. Laluska is doing their living history performance. The Lewis River Golf Course is doing their wreath making class. You buy those tickets online. I believe you get some hors d'oeuvres and some drinks while you make your wreath, which is really fun. And then on the 1st of December, we have our annual after hours up at the golf course. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's at 5:30. Come up there for some yummy hors d'oeuvres, cash bar, silent auction, live auction, mystery tree, all kinds of fun stuff. And then on the 3rd, which is that Saturday, is the Woodland Winterfest where we light the tree. Santa is going to be at the Woodland Ace. And Longview Parks and Rec, if you haven't got enough bazaars, they have one at the McClellan Arts Center. Then the 10th, you have the VFW breakfast. They're doing breakfast with Santa at Longview Parks and Recs. We're doing Shop with a Cop with all the different area, not facilities, what do you call them? Departments? Law enforcement. Thank you. Agencies, words. Let's see. Holidays are. Okay, Chamber. Our after hours next Thursday. I already talked about that. Make sure you come. It's a lot of fun. Then we have all of our membership invoices have been sent out. If you pay before the 31st, you get 5% discount. And our banquet date has been set. It's the 21st of January.
And where's that going to be at?
It's going to be at the golf course.
At the golf course.
We're doing the golf course. And then we have, this has been out for a while, so some people have already seen it. You can scan it with your phone. We have the nominations for Citizen, Employee, and Business of the Year is open. They are due on the 13th of December. The list is actually decently long already, which usually people wait till the last second to send those in. But if you would like to apply, send me an email. I can send you the links again, or you can scan these guys. But yeah, that's due the 13th of December. I hope to see you
have any questions?
all next Thursday.
Did I catch you sitting on Santa Claus's lap this weekend?
I did not sit on Santa Claus' lap. I did stand next to him, and my daughter did too. She was so excited. The amount of Christmas movies we have watched since she was, our family got the lovely cred going around last week. It's been a lot of Christmas.
Also, I'd like to let you know that forest passes are free to veterans as of now. So if you want to get a pass and you're a veteran, you can walk to, not the chamber, but you can go to Ridgefield, Vancouver, or the site you want to go to, and they're free. Absolutely. don't have to
You
pay
need
the
a
20 bucks, you don't have
check.
to, nothing.
Because you can't always get the permanent passes at like Johnson. Like let's say it's the summertime, you go to Johnson Ridge. They don't, even though they technically sell the passes, they do not give out like those type of passes. Like same thing with the fourth graders. If you have a fourth grader, so anyone who is a fourth grader can also get a free Northwest Forest pass.
But Richfield, you get everything.
Pass different than the national park passes?
Yes and no.
So if we already have national park passes or
Your
state
national
park
park pass will generally always cover your Northwest Forest pass. However, certain places like Johnson Ridge require an additional fee to do certain things, like go into the or into the movie and stuff.
And you can get that free.
Make
Okay.
sense?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Third section.
Okay, reports, moving on to reports of city officers. The mayor's not here, so we won't have anything from him. The city administrator's not here, so we're gonna skip that portion. Moving on to consent items. Make a motion?
Motion to pass consent items?
Second?
Did you second or ask for a second?
Pardon?
Did you second or ask for a second?
No, I asked for a second.
Second?
Okay. Yeah, that probably did sound like I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that. Okay, all right. Melissa?
Just think that these items just need to go ahead and pass.
Okay. Amanda?
Councilmember Holland,
Wait, what about questions?
Aye.
Well, what about Dinehart speaking about this thing in the consent item that was not correct?
Consent item?
You'd have to have a.
That's not, that's
Okay.
the action item.
That's an
That's
action
an
item,
action
yeah.
item.
That's an action item.
Okay. I
Yeah,
thought
I'm
it was
waiting
this
for
one.
it.
Okay.
That was minutes.
Councilmember Rolland,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye. Okay, so it's been approved. So moving on to action items. Action item G, ordinance 1527, an ordinance fixing the amount to be provided by ad valorem taxes upon the property in the city of Woodland in 2023 and approving an ordinance summary for publication as more particularly set forth herein, first and final reading.
I was gonna ask if there were anybody to speak about that. What's actually, is that going, where's the money on that?
Pardon?
The money. If we do an
Ad
valorem, valorem, there's talking about some money, right? And is that, around that 1% tax that we're not going to approve?
Correct.
Okay.
There's no increase.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure.
Motion to
Took a
pass action item for ordinance 1527.
Second? Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Okay.
I
All
just
right.
want to make sure on that.
Melissa?
I just think with everything that is going on with the way our economy is and the water as we are trying to figure it out, I think at this time, this is the best action for our city residents as we figure out what's going on.
Who seconded?
I did.
You did? Okay. JJ?
Yeah, I agree.
Anyone else? Okay. Amanda, take the roll.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rolland,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye. Okay, moving on to action item H, resolution 754, authorizing no increase in the regular 2023 property tax levy.
Motion to pass resolution 754.
Second.
Okay. Melissa?
Same as the first one.
Carl?
I agree.
Okay. Any other questions?
No?
Okay, Amanda, you want to take the roll?
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland, Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rolland,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to action item I, resolution number 755, intent to file application for USDA funding for water projects.
Travis, do we have any more information as to what our cost is for that project versus the grant?
We do not typically, what we will do is we will apply for multiple grants and figure out how we qualify and depending on what we qualify for. So my understanding is quite often Tracy will apply for more than we could actually fund because we don't typically receive everything that we apply for. So that's part of the reason why there continues to be changes to grants and projects as they occur. And then the other thing that typically happens is you tend to apply a year or two in advance because the initial year would tend to be a project design, and you get your money in order and then you begin construction the next year. So there's a timing associated with when you apply, when you get funded in design, and then when you actually do construction. So that's part of the reason why it's a moving target for both budgeting and planning.
And so this is just
To apply.
apply for the grant. This is not
To spend.
saying
Yeah.
us spending any.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Doesn't
Okay.
cost us nothing.
Okay. Motion to pass resolution number 755, intent to file application.
Second.
Okay, been first and seconded. Melissa?
It doesn't hurt to apply for money. We don't have to use it.
JJ, Mr. Burke?
And again, I concur with her.
Okay. Anyone else?
To see if we can get it.
Amanda, you want to take the roll?
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rolland,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to move out of the regular meeting at 8:03 and go into the workshop. Okay. Why is this an ordinance? Says ordinance in the workshop?
Yeah.
It's for an ordinance that will be number 1529. We did not draft the ordinance yet because we wanted to have the conversation. So this gets to one of the issues that was raised earlier, and we had discussed this at the executive session because, and we'll get into that in a couple minutes.
Okay. Okay, so this is
Yes.
on ordinance 1529, an ordinance rescinding ordinance 1508, ordinance 1523. So, Travis?
Thank you. For the record, my name is Travis Goddard. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Woodland. And the reason why we're talking about this today is because the ordinances under discussion were listed in the agenda, and they are the ordinance 1508 for our agricultural zoning tool, and then ordinance 1523, which is a comprehensive plan map expansion, which included the entire bottoms in the urban growth area for planning purposes, and then resolution 751, which we use to rescind the Woodland Urban Growth Management Program, because we now come under the Growth Management Act, and our comp plan was up to date and no longer use those as by reference. And the reason for this workshop is it's in response to some planning actions by Cowlitz County, took on those items, and specifically they filed a SEPA Environmental Policy Act appeal against Ordinance 1523, and they filed a lawsuit against the city in Cowlitz County Superior Court for the adoption of all three of those actions by the city. And so the thing that we're going to talk about today is the council and the mayor had asked me to do a public presentation so that the public could understand the objectives of why we did what we did and why we got into the position that we're in. So for transparency, that's part of what we were trying to get at today. So the answer to that is, or I guess the first question is, why are we taking the steps that we are? And the answer to that is we're trying to plan for impacts that occur, and we're taking into account all the influences that affect the city. Specifically, in this case, we're trying to look at the impacts from the woodland bottoms, because we can't avoid those impacts, and they have the ability to have substantial negative impacts on the city. So it's hard enough for us to manage our own issues without having to inherit those issues from decisions that are made outside of our sphere of influence. And so part of what we are looking to do out of this effort, and we are working with an attorney to work with the county, and we're trying to avoid costly and unnecessary litigation. And so we're seeking alternative solutions, and specifically what we would like to achieve out of this is we would like to, these are the 5 items that we've identified and we're working towards, and that is a bottom sub-area plan, county mitigation for development impacts, urban growth area expansion, interlocal or joint agreement for planning projects, and Diking District planning and management issues. So I'll go into each one of those a little bit more of a deep dive, and specifically we'll start with the bottoms master plan. Impacts within the bottoms directly affect the city, and expanding the urban growth boundary under 1523, we were trying to create a nexus between the city and the planning of the bottoms so that it would justify the efforts that we were going to put into that. And in 2018, we undertook this effort, but it was set aside at the county's request under the interlocal agreements that were in place at the time. Since that time, there have been no proactive planning efforts that have been initiated, and so we've been kind of frustrated with that, and that's why we were taking action. The development continues to occur, and the county, and the one thing we would like to point out, and that is what we're hoping is that the county will take the lead on a master planning process so that they could address our concerns, because that's part of the reason why they're appealing us, is they don't want necessarily the city to undertake those efforts by ourselves without them having a role in it. But we need to point out that we comply with the Growth Management Act, and therefore the efforts that they perform, or that we would like them to perform, should be compliant with the Growth Management Act. Otherwise, we may not be able to rely on it, in which case we would just have to do all of the work again to meet the Growth Management Act. So that's part of the reason why we were trying to take the lead on it. So the second objective we're trying to get to, and that is county impact mitigation. So mitigation can be collected by the county. Mitigation forces developers to pay for their impacts, and this mitigation would protect city taxpayers from those costs. In fact, all taxpayers would be protected without passing any new laws or regulations if the county were to start using their SEPA. Without it, the question needs to be asked, and that is, can we justify why the city is assuming those burdens without taking into that into consideration? So objective 3, urban growth area expansion. In 2018, the city evaluated expanding its urban growth boundary. We looked at 6 growth scenarios from no changes to including the entire bottoms in our growth area so we could master plan for the impacts. This discussion was abandoned at the county's request because they cited the 1981 and the 2002 planning agreements. And they cited the resolutions that were rescinded under Resolution 751, which is subject to the appeal in the lawsuit. And the county desires another analysis to be completed before they would consider expanding the county's comprehensive plan, urban growth boundary. So we're in this catch-22 where we tried to plan for growth and they shut us down, and now we're in the strange position where they will not necessarily consider expansion of the urban growth boundary until we're done planning. So in a sense, they put a hurdle in front of us. We respected their wishes. Now they won't consider our wishes because we never finished the planning process that we were asked to stop. So we're kind of wrestling with how to address this issue. As an alternative, the city would like the county to commit to accepting an expansion before it expends the time, money, and effort for another planning effort, because we know in 2018-19 we spent almost 9 months, had almost 7 or 8 public meetings, we had several open houses, several hundred comments were taken, and in the end we couldn't proceed because of that. What we would like them to do is to take a look at some of the scenarios that they would consider and to adopt those in their comprehensive plan, so that we could then therefore go through the efforts under Growth Management Act and figure out what that means to our community and how we would manage that growth. And so specifically what we would like them to look at is scenario 5, which is includes the county area east of the train tracks. It includes the development intensive areas of the county. It preserves agricultural land, which is Ordinance 1508. That's what we were trying to do with the ordinance that is also being appealed. It also allows for utility and service provision efficiently and effectively, because it doesn't mean we have to plan for large gaps or for in-holding small public systems that we would have to potentially annex or upgrade to bring it up to city standards if we were going to start developing or managing it. And also, we have to recognize that it matches the applicant's requests back from 2018-2019 before we told them no. And then also the city expansion would be limited by what's justified under the GMA. So in other words, what you see here before you, if this was part of the county comprehensive plan, we may only be able to justify maybe 200 acres to be included in the urban growth boundary. Therefore, the fact that the county may include 700-800 acres, we could not expand into that entire area unless it was consistent with GMA. So regardless of how big or small the county urban growth boundary is, we play by a different set of rules, and we can't abuse those rules even if they were to allot us a larger growth boundary. So objective 4, and I'll get back to that in a little more because I have a couple more maps if you have any questions. Objective 4 is we would like a new interlocal planning agreement. The city would consider a replacement agreement for the 1981 and the 2002 agreements, but we would like to see that there's a coordinated approach to planning. It would also allow for master planning of the bottoms, which is one of the things we are trying to achieve. Covers mutual mitigation for impacts. Not only are there impacts to the city from county developments, but there are county or city developments that impact the county, so there should be a mutual agreement that goes both directions. And we'd like to see an agreement that gives the city influence over development decisions. Part of our problem with those two agreements is it said the county shall consult with the city, whereas it requires the city to comply with the county. So it was a one-way street, and they were under no obligations to do the same for us. And so a new interlocal agreement that made it a little more of an even playing field is part of what we're looking for. And then the last thing is the Dyking District planning and management. The city is seeking an equitable solution to concerns about the Dyking District. One is we would like to review the district boundaries. We'd like to review the district funding and how that is allotted, and then reviewing planning for capital and maintenance in the Diking district. So they have a couple main goals and objectives, and we would like to work with them on that, so that the city gets fairly represented in that if it's not currently being fairly represented. So we would like to point out that this is just our opportunity to make this quick presentation to you and to get the word out in the public, let the public take a look at the staff report and understand what the city is trying to achieve. But like I said, we will be coming forward with an ordinance 1529 for first reading on December 5th. And the public will have the opportunity to comment on that ordinance, because it would rescind action that the city has already taken. So in other words, it would draw back our current commitment to plan for the bottoms and to protect agricultural through agricultural zoning. So, do you have any questions?
How many years are we looking in before this could happen?
Which part? For the lawsuit?
Any of it.
Or, oh, well, so the development or the long-range planning window of the comprehensive plan is 20 years. So theoretically, our projections are supposed to be updated periodically, and our periodic update is actually supposed to occur by 2025, I believe it is. And so we need to start some of these planning discussions in 2023 so that we can engage in our 2024 planning process and be adopted by June of 2025. So we've already waited for 4 years and haven't made much progress. We've done a lot of studies internally, but we haven't done anything with the bottoms, and we haven't seen any movement. So unfortunately, time passes really quickly, especially if we want to do any kind of robust public engagement. Last time we just did a small revision, and it still took about 14 months and a dozen public meetings.
In the bottoms, I know Aho was looking to do a big development, and the county rejected that. But if it's not a big project like that, what do they do? Is it only 2.5 acres, or is it 5 acres that they do per household?
Like most of the areas that we were in that green map, I believe the majority of that is either 2 or 5.
2 or 5.
Depending on where it is. There's also a significant amount of commercial and industrial down there. Well, what the city would consider commercial or industrial, in the county it's considered resource land. Much of it is resource land agriculture, and then it's got either commercial or industrial uses that are associated with ag.
That's one thing I was wondering about.
Yeah.
Talk about the plant.
So if it does get annexed in, there would be some industrial down there, is that correct? Well, I know, but.
Okay, so I did prepare a couple extra maps, just in case that question came up. So this is the scenario 6 that we had discussed. It was to include the entire bottoms in the urban growth boundary, but it didn't include specific designations. And this was the Planning Commission recommendation, and they had recommended that we adopt much of the county planning or county zoning that was in place. So the red was the commercial uses, and blue is industrial uses, and then yellow is the residential. So that's what the Planning Commission had recommended for scenario 5. So
If it happened to be annexed
if
into
it had
the city.
if it had made it that far.
Okay.
And then this is what we adopted under the ordinance 1523 that's currently being challenged. And the biggest difference is, instead of having a blank urban bottoms that we would fill in with more planning effort later, we had included some assumptions that anything that was agriculture on the west side of the tracks, that we would treat it like commercial, and that we wouldn't accept any development regulations until such time as we had done a master plan. And so it's different than what the planning commission had recommended. But it did include some commercial, some industrial.
There's one in the audience.
Pardon?
There's one in the
I
audience.
I don't know if the can the audience talk in a workshop?
That would be for the planning, the public hearing.
Okay, so
Yep.
for December 5th.
Okay, say December the 5th, then you can come and say whatever you want to.
Yes.
Okay.
And anybody who has questions about this can come see me before then so that they have a better understanding of what we're going to talk about at the public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we ask any questions on anything else?
Pardon?
Can we ask any questions about anything else?
Pertains to his workshop.
If it's
Yeah.
pertaining
Oh,
to the
pertaining
workshop.
workshop, okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. So are there any other questions?
That I don't want to ask.
Anything else, Travis? Okay. We will end the workshop then at 8:21. And it come to the time of the meeting that we're to end the
Move to end the
meeting.
meeting.
Motion to end meeting?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
You already home, Dan, you don't count.
Pardon?
Yeah, she said nay, said you already home, you don't count.
Right.
This conference is no longer being recorded.